In the United Kingdom, the average life expectancy for a male such as myself is 78.7 years. As I am recording this voiceover, today is actually my birthday. I am now 31 years old and was born on the 13th of March 1993, which means statistically I only have little over 47 and a half years left to live. Heck, let's get exact. From my date of birth, my expected date of death would be Thursday, the 5th of November, 2071, with the day rounded up. Yes, it's one of those videos. Video games have been around for well over 5 decades, and in that time, thousands upon thousands of video games have been made. According to a quick Google search I just did whilst writing this line, there are well over 800,000 different video games out there in the world. And if we take off the shovelware you find on mobile phones, we're looking at almost 100,000. And that's not counting unofficial fan games that I'm sure many have tried and failed to make over the years. Now, returning back to myself, I am what people might consider a mid-core gamer. I play a variety of genres, and the majority of my free time is just playing video games. I know, a total loser, right? However, the thing about me is that it's not often I actually finish many of the games I actually start. And it got me thinking, why? Why do I purchase a whole game only to never finish it? The answer is time. And that brings us on to the subject of this video. You just can't play everything, no matter how much you might want to. Let's find out why with some scenarios I, and perhaps even yourselves, are all too familiar with. Imagine this. You're playing a brand new video game you just bought and you're enjoying it. You're halfway through completing it. But then, what's this? A brand new shiny video game that everybody is talking about that you've also been looking forward to playing comes out and, well, you don't want to miss out now, do you? People could spoil it, and there's so many cool things you've seen, you've just got to play it. So inevitably, you stop playing your current game and play the new one, where afterwards it usually goes in a few directions. The same thing happens again. You find a shiny new video game whilst playing this one, and the cycle continues. Or you actually do complete that new game, but it's been a long time since you played the game you stopped playing. You've forgotten the story, the mechanics. You put all those hours into the game. You might even have to start over to remind yourself on what to do. But that means it's so many hours just down the drain. Time of your life you've just wasted. And therefore, you may not go back to it. At least not right away. Because then maybe a new game comes out. Oh, doesn't it look so cool? But it's a direct continuation of that game you stopped playing a few years ago. But you're determined. So you start up that game again from the beginning after putting it off for so long and, well, the same scenarios may occur, but there's also another scenario, and that is burnout. You did complete the game, congratulations, and now here's the sequel, just in the nick of time. As much as you enjoyed the last game, you feel so tired of the franchise for now, and so you decide to put off the sequel. Perhaps never even play it. Almost a decade ago, I tried Dark Souls. I struggled with the first boss, made it to Firelink Shrine, and then kept dying over and over and over. I didn't understand the appeal of these games, so I gave up. Then Bloodborne came out. Again, I didn't get too far into that, and gave up too. A couple of years went by, and I decided to watch two dudes play through Bloodborne. They were the Game Grumps, and I saw how bad Aaron sucked at the game. But do you know what he did? He persevered. This is probably one of the first times in my life I ever felt inspired. If someone like Aaron Hansen, who is notoriously bad at paying attention to directions, can beat the Souls games, surely I could. And I did. I beat them all. Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, Elden Ring. 8 or so years ago, I despised these types of games. They were too hard. But I persevered. And now, these are some of my favourite games of all time. If you're someone who finds things like Souls games too hard and needs an easy mode, then these games just aren't for you. I'm sorry, but it's something you will just have to accept. But that's okay. Across your life, you will have met people, made friends, had a variety of experiences and jobs you maybe loved or hated, and all of that culminates into the person you are. All of that makes you, you. And for some people, because of all of their different experiences, they are able to enjoy these games. Life's a trade-off. I thoroughly enjoy the Souls franchise, but sports games like FIFA or EA Sports FC now, NBA, NFL, they're just not for me. I just can't get to grips with the gameplay. Meanwhile, others out there are absolutely cracked at them. Just because something is popular doesn't mean you're going to enjoy it. And sometimes we as humans are just going to have to accept that. After all, Christopher Nolan films? The majority just don't appeal to me, and most of them are just bad. There, I said it! In fact, let's talk about that. There are so many different types of genres out there, some that seemingly became entirely new genres just by mixing two together, like Metroidvania. Somehow they took game names and mashed them together to make a genre, and yet most of us somehow know what that means. And if you don't, Google it. The fact of the matter is that not every genre will appeal to everybody. I've already mentioned sports games, but then there's games that involve micromanagement. City builders like City Skylines, or even stat adjustment games like Democracy and Football Manager. Seriously, who enjoys this? It's like staring at spreadsheets after already staring at spreadsheets in your 9-to-5 office job. You might as well just keep working if you're having that much fun. Most RPGs are, of course, notoriously known for spanning anywhere between 10 to 100 plus hours in a single playthrough, which is maddening when you think about it. Especially when you see some RPG games with that amount of content barely crack 1 million sales. Meanwhile, the FIFA games, where they would just take the previous game, slightly update the graphics and change the football roster, would sell 10 million plus within a few months of each release. My point though is that whilst these RPGs might appeal to the likes of myself, there are those they just won't. There are people who only ever enjoy short experiences because they just don't have the time or energy to care about their fake RPG family when their baby is crying in the other room. You should probably go check on your baby, by the way. And then we actually do have fake families like in The Sims. You're home away from home, whilst you're probably playing it in your own home. But a game like that can at least be played in small bursts. Maybe you're into some indie titles where experiences are relatively short and doesn't demand your soul in exchange to understand what the hell is going on. God forbid you actually do sell your soul and exclusively only play multiplayer games. Speaking of, let me tell you a story. January 2019. The Kranitoko back then was a simple man, gleefully playing through single-player titles like Darksiders 3 and Resident Evil 2 Remake. Then February came along, and a small, little niche game you might have heard about called Apex Legends launched and ruined my life. I kid you not, Apex absorbed so much of my time that since its day one launch, according to my PlayStation, I had put nearly 4,000 total hours into it. Of course, 500 or so hours was probably just being on an idle login screen, so maybe about 3,500 hours, but that's almost half a year of my life to this one game. And don't think my wallet escaped either. I genuinely think I've spent almost £1,000 total through battle passes and skins. From around Season 4 onwards, I made sure to reach Diamond in the ranked mode, and as seasons progressed, I would end up playing less and less, but I still managed to reach Diamond every season. Until one time I couldn't. And somehow that gnawed at me. What was I actually achieving? Who was I doing it for? Why was I doing it? And I still don't have an answer. And then there were the season passes. Eventually, getting to max level became too much of a grind. Every day it was the same sort of matches, getting wrecked by people better than me or easily stomping those worse than me, though it was more the former than the latter. All that time spent doing the same thing over and over and over, and what was it getting me? Nothing. Sure, maybe I made some brief friends along the way, but as time went on, even they faded out of my life. I stopped playing. And I don't mean just Apex. In 2023, there was a window during the summer I just didn't really play anything. And during my free time, I'm almost always playing something. Somehow, I had been so burnt out on Apex that it put a full stoppage on gaming for me. How can one video game do that? But that's the problem, isn't it? Even as you watch this video right now, there are millions of people across the world playing multiplayer games that one day will be shut down forever. And all that time and money they have put into them will be something to reflect on. Multiplayer games absorb so much of your time, and I'm not saying everybody has the same experience, but I think all I really got out of it in the end was small bursts of dopamine. Meanwhile, think of all that time, and what else it could have been spent on. Multiplayer games don't invoke many emotions, but the two that stand out are anger and joy. Anger at losing, and joy at winning. Is it any wonder then that top Twitch streamers only known for playing multiplayer games would complain that there aren't many good games? They've been kept from feeling any other emotions because of the grind they've kept themselves on, because diverting now could spell doom for their Twitch careers, maybe even their family life. And I'm not saying you shouldn't play multiplayer games. Hell, maybe you're doing it right now whilst watching this video. But you have to ask yourself if exclusively playing this one title is what you want to do with your time. At the end of 2023, the last game I completed before the new year was Baldur's Gate 3. And as the credits rolled after my 100 plus hour playthrough, I cried my eyes out. This was the second time I've ever cried at the end of a video game. The first being Final Fantasy X's ending. If you know, you know. Throughout those hours with Baldur's Gate 3, these were the characters I cared for, save scumming to ensure nothing bad would happen to them across my journey. And then the worst thing happened. The story ended. Sure, I guess I could start a new playthrough. But what will that achieve? I'd just be going through the same content with slight alterations. It wouldn't add to the personal story I went on, because it would essentially be erasing it with an entirely new canon. I would be killing my version of these characters. That's why our time is fragile. We can maybe undo the choices we made in the video games we play, but we cannot undo what games we choose to spend our time on. Video games are meant to invoke a wide array of emotions, take you on journeys that would be impossible in reality. You're probably now expecting some sort of moral from me here. And honestly, I don't really have one. But with how short our time is on this earth, we need to be more open to other experiences and ideas. You can not like something, sure, so long as you understand not everything was made for you. You can't play everything. It might be such a grim note to end on, I know, but acceptance of death is something I struggle to come to terms with. I hear as you get older, you slowly come to accept it, but I guess I'll never really know until I get there. If I get there. I wonder about my death a lot, how I'm going to die or when. It can happen tomorrow, 30 years from now. Hell, maybe it'll land bang on my death date. And I'll go out in a blaze of glory on the 5th of November, 2071, pun intended. Until then, what am I going to do with my time? I'm going to play some fucking video games.